Fear Not, Episode 27. Hi, I'm Billy Atwell, and I believe that consistently facing your fears is the only way to realize your truest self and to make those confident choices that will help you to obtain your deepest held hopes and dreams. I have faith that this podcast series will show you that you are not alone, that it will strengthen you and give you courage to face your fears, and that it will help you to permanently cross over into a life of living beyond your fears. Join me on this journey as we listen and learn from others as they share their experiences in facing and overcoming their own fears. Hello, everybody, and welcome today. You and I are going to be joined by Jennifer Keller. Hey, Jennifer, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good, Billy. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, it's truly my pleasure. Are you ready to fear not today?
I am.
Jennifer Keller lives in Sacramento, California. She's an artist, loves nature, traveling, bohemian style, mysticism, and history, all of which bubbles up in her work. Jennifer feels it's so common for people to feel disconnected from nature, creative expression, and their inner guidance. Through art and creativity, she tries to help people reconnect with these values. She truly believes that your environment is the fourth link in the body, mind, and spirit connection, and if you have unhappy things in your home or a cluttered space, it's going to affect you negatively. In other words, your soul feeds your space and your space feeds your soul. Jennifer is also an avid vintage decor collector and dealer. She loves hunting through discarded treasures to find pieces with timeless style and repurposing things that have been cast aside and reinventing them in a fresh way. By polishing up vintage wares and making them available to her community, she's attempting to do her part to save our planet. Jennifer, can you take a few minutes to fill in the gaps and maybe give us a brief glimpse of your personal life as well?
Sure. Well, I've been an artist ever since I graduated from college with my art degree, and my background is in gallery work. I've worked for an auction. I used to do picture framing and worked for an art supply store. So I'm pretty deeply rooted in creative endeavors. My parents are artists. And so I've really made an effort to make my life and my service to people all about creativity. And I really find that nature is a source for getting inspiration. And really there's inspiration all around us, whether you're in nature or your own neighborhood or just, flipping around the internet. So I really enjoy style as a form of expression when it comes to vintage and making artwork. So that is my little world that I cultivate on a daily basis.
It sounds like a nice one.
Thanks.
Jennifer, would you mind sharing with us today one of your biggest fears that you've had to overcome?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a couple types of fears that I've faced in my life. One is like an emergency type of fear where, I faced actual physical danger. And that's kind of like a big, fast, unexpected event. For instance, I've had my house broken into when I was actually sleeping, and I was alone. So that was really scary.
I would
But
imagine.
that's the type of I didn't realize it until the morning, but it was it was a huge shock. And it's the type of fear that I wasn't really able to prevent at the time. I didn't see it coming. So, after the fact, I knew that I could take measures to be more careful, but I had to process my fears and anxiety about that. But more so, and I think more importantly, is the fear that I've had to overcome in stepping into my own personal truth as I've made progress in my career as an artist. Being an artist it has a huge stigma in these times, and artists don't really operate in the same way that, like corporate America does, or, more mainstream jobs. So it really came down to having to build my courage and take a closer look at fear of the unknown, because, humans have deep fears of the unknown. And my path has taken me through some really uncertain times. You know, Even after having been employed in the arts for so long, I went through working in artistic establishments and organizations. Um, so I thought I understood creativity, but in 2012, I was laid off from my day job, and I had no idea how I was really going to make things work. And that fear of the unknown, it really set in, and I didn't exactly know how things were going to manifest. I was depressed, and I was looking for work, and putting out a ton of applications, and my resume is, like really thick with art experience, and I don't know if that translates to regular job applications in other fields. So I wasn't really getting any bites. So I just kind of wound up making my own job, and I had to make it up. I had to make it up as I went along, and it was really scary. But it was just kind of out of necessity at the time, and then it's grown since then. I was making my own art and showing that, and then I got into vintage. So I was painting furniture and selling it on Craigslist, and then it grew into decor and fashion, and now I'm teaching. So that's been really great, to come full circle and share what I've put together with other people.
So, what did you do to get you through that transitional period?
I had to overcome a lot of resistance. There was a lot of fear of being judged. And it was a huge block for me. And that's kind of like fight or flight mentality, because I was in flight because I was facing something that I didn't know about. So I actually teach about this in my intuitive painting workshop, but it's important to recognize when stress has pushed you into that fight or flight mode. That was a big realization for me, and I've seen it in the way people approach art making as well. So the reason being is that we make poor decisions from this headspace, because in fight or flight, our brain function changes. It goes away from that prefrontal cortex, and that's where all your cognitive thought occurs. And instead, it all goes back to your lizard brain, your reptilian brain, and we're more in like a survival instinct. But these days, like the stress of like being laid off, or even just approaching a painting, it's not really going to like physically lash out and hurt you. Like that, that mechanism is supposed to protect you from. So it's important to like slow down, recognize that, you're in a stressful place, and, move forward and slow down, and also learn how to work with intuition versus what like my ego might be telling me. And that's all part of the course that I put together, is learning to know the difference between trusting your intuition and then being afraid of taking risks. So I can talk a little bit about that if you want.
Yeah, that'd be very interesting to hear. Why don't you do that for us, please?
Okay. Um, so the ego's voice it often wants to pull you into fight or flight. It's the ego is obsessed with survival of the fittest. Its job is self-preservation and self-identification. It's really competitive. So it doesn't like to take risks so much. It'll tell you all of the different reasons why something won't work out if you're considering a risk, whether or not that's really true. And it's different than being attacked. If like when our primitive brains would want to go into fight or flight, this is more about taking a risk. So it'll tell you like you're not experienced enough, or other people are better than you, or you don't have the money or the looks or like the business skills or whatever, which is mostly all in your head. A lot of those fears are false, or you can work your way through the obstacles. Like if you don't have the training or the education, you can figure out a way to get the training. So a lot of them can be solved. But on the other hand, we have our intuitive voice, which is more of like a curious voice that wants to try new things and take risks. And it's really fun to work with intuition when you're being creative because the risks aren't as high. Like you can't die like making a painting unless you were to like eat the paint or like do something stupid like stick the paintbrush in your ear or something, like there's no real like imminent risk. The dangers are pretty low. When we do work with that intuition when we're painting, something really like even magical happens, and it's like our inner guide is actually communicating with us, and it might not make sense in the moment, but later you can gain a lot of insight and meaning from working with your intuition. So on one hand, we have our ego, which keeps us from doing things because of fear, and whether it's valid or not. Some of our ego's messages are really valid, and we need to listen to them. It's there for a reason. But then on the other hand, there's the intuition that will guide us towards things. So it's kind of like a magnet where ego is pushing us away from danger, like a negative end of the magnet. And then the intuition is pulling us towards exploration and a little bit of risk taking and going into that unknown place. So that's how I talk about it. And we get more into that in my class. But I found it to be really valuable in some of my decision making. But the key is to not do things like completely impulsively either. You have to balance it out.
You seem like the type of person, from what I know of you, that you really like to dig deep and you're a seeker. Surely you've come across in your own personal journey some really great resources on this subject. Would you mind sharing a few of those with us?
Sure, yeah. Well, at this point, what I work with is what I've started calling heart-centered mindfulness. So that's a concept of consciously following your heart. And it's kind of the link between that ego and your intuition, if you think about it. So consciously using the brain to check in with your heart space in the form of like compassion and gratitude, kind of letting go of things that aren't serving you, slowing down, staying in the present, things like that. And that really involves a few different practices, which I alternate in and out of my routine. Like I love to journal. I listen to guided meditations, which you can find a ton of on YouTube. That's a really great resource for just calming down and centering yourself.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing those resources with us. Are you ready for the speed run?
Yeah, let's go for it.
What individual that's either fiction or real has been the most inspiration for you?
Oh man. Okay, so I'm going to go with the most obvious here. This is the first thing that pops into my mind, which is my parents, because I wouldn't be here without them. I have their DNA, and they're both also artists. So, without a doubt, my dad taught in high school. He was a ceramics teacher, and my mom was an elementary school teacher's assistant and made ceramics, and they actually met in art school. So I am like totally turning into my parents. We have a good relationship, and other than working for a school district, I think I'm really following in the family path.
If you could instantly change one thing in the world, what would that be?
um, I think it would be I'd make like energy and consumer products all like 100% sustainable and renewable. I think it's the root of a lot of conflicts in the world. So I would take care of the planet. Yeah.
What's your biggest weakness?
My biggest weakness, um, I can be I can be a little inconsistent. I can be a little airheaded sometimes. I think that's one of the things about being an artist that is kind of stereotypically, I've taken on that stereotype in my personality a little bit.
What's your biggest strength?
um, I think that would be I'm compassionate, and I have a lot of patience, and I can see other people's perspectives, and I'm pretty diplomatic. I don't get hot headed very easily. Yeah.
If you could have one book to read, what would that be?
Mm, one book to read. Um, I can't pick. I'll tell you, one of the best books that I've read in the past couple of years is A Tale for the Time Being. It's a really cool book about time travel and writer's block. So that was a really good one. But oh gosh, one book that's like impossible to pick.
What's your idea of a vacation?
Well, I definitely would want to go someplace in a natural environment. I tend to go more rural than metro. So I think I would want to go to some place that was like a spa that was at like a mountain lodge or something where I could lay by a lake or like float in the lake and get massages and, just like totally relax and have everything brought to me.
Do you have a favorite? Do you have a favorite sound?
Yeah. I think my favorite sound, well, it's raining today, and that's a really good sound that I'm hearing at the moment. But I think my favorite sound of all times is the sound of women harmonizing, like in singing. It's beautiful. It's like hearing angels.
And Jennifer, if someone wants to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I would have them go to my website first of all, and that is jenniferlaurelkeller.com. And there you can sign up for emails. I write a pretty awesome email, so people tell me they're very entertaining, and I make videos, so you can kind of keep up with what I'm doing that way. And if you have any questions for me, you can always email me, which is jenniferlkeller@yahoo.com.
And do you have any parting advice for us today that you'd like to share with us?
Oh man, a lot. Well, keeping with the fear theme, I think that um, just one step at a time. I think that is the way to make progress and to keep fears pretty low. It's just taking it as it comes, and always express yourself truthfully and authentically as much as you can. It can be scary to go deep or to put it out there, but it is so rewarding. And, I'd love to connect with people who want to do that kind of thing. So, yeah, just be yourself, be creative, and fear not.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, too. You're really cool. I'm really glad you came on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much. So are you. I'm really glad. I'm grateful to be here with you today and thankful that I can connect with your audience.
Thank you for joining me today. And remember, you cannot achieve everything, but you do have the God-given ability to achieve anything. So stay focused, out of fear, and keep on keeping on. Until next time, be well and peaceful. For more information on today's episode and guest, or for resources that will assist you in overcoming your fears, visit livingbeyondyourfears.com. And don't forget to subscribe to this podcast, where 3 times a week we move to a life beyond our fears.